We will now move to Desmond Silveira of the California Party, and also the former chairman of the, in my view, very successful Carroll 2020 campaign, with his strategic plan for how to move forward for the next presidential election. Desmond.
So starting out, let's cover where we have been and where we're at. Back in 2016, the Matern campaign received 6,697 votes. This 2020 election year, we improved by a great deal, getting 42,200 votes. One thing that we've found over the course of these campaigns is that throughout our write-in eligible states, we have a fairly consistent percentage of the vote that we received. And across our ballot access states, it's also fairly consistent. One of the things that I did was I tracked over 100 candidates in the elections, tracked parties, tracked what worked, what didn't work, and moved forward with the knowledge that I had. And one of the things that I found was that candidates and parties grow in prominence based on their electoral vote access, but it's not linear. It's not that prominence doesn't grow linearly with the access. There are certain milestones that afford a greater prominence, and those include getting on the ballot in at least one state, getting on the ballot in multiple states, and a big milestone is hitting 270 votes of electoral vote access, because in hitting that, one gets invitations to more debates or more interviews, more articles, and also gets featured on the main Wikipedia election page instead of being relegated to the third-party page only. So what I'm proposing is that for the 2024 election season, we set a definite target of hitting 270 votes of electoral vote access. And I can go over that in a little bit more detail. The plan is somewhat fleshed out. At the state level, it'll still need to be more fleshed out, and that'll happen over time. But one of the things that is true among getting access to the ballot in multiple across the nation is that different states have vastly different requirements, and the number of votes that we benefit from in each state is quite different. So when taking a look at the votes for a state and the cost to gain access in that state, different states have quite different values. In order to achieve the 270 votes of electoral access, we ought to prioritize the states by their value to us, and target states based on that value. Allow me to do a little bit of synopsis among the states that I'm targeting. First, the best value is Florida at the moment, because with Florida, there are no signature requirements as long as we have party recognition. And our state leader over there, Tim Traywin, he is currently working on party recognition. If that is successful, then there will be essentially no cost to getting onto the ballot in Florida. Florida is 29 electoral votes. In Tennessee, the requirements are 275 signatures. So the cost will be minimal, and that'll give us 11 electoral votes. And before I go on, I should point out that in order to get the signatures, we will rely on both the volunteer work, but we also realistically need to rely on paid petitioners. This year, 2020, it was actually quite expensive to use paid petitioners because with the COVID lockdown, the market for paid petitioning was really out of whack. But hopefully in 2024, things will be more normal. And the numbers that I used were with that expectation that the market for paid petitioning gets back to normal. So third state, Louisiana, that has 8 electoral votes for, and all that would be required is a $500 filing fee. Colorado, also very easy, a $1,000 filing fee. New Jersey has a modest number of signatures required, it's 800, and that'll give us 14 electoral votes. Washington, 12 electoral votes for 1,000 signatures. Illinois is the next case, and that is a special case because Illinois requires 25,000 signatures. Over in Arkansas, next on the list, Arkansas, 6 electoral votes for 1,000 signatures. Utah, 6 electoral votes, 1,000 signatures. Mississippi, 6 electoral votes for 1,000 signatures, but I think that we may be able to get party recognition. In order to do that, we need to establish a state committee. That's been a bit challenging because we don't have many volunteers in the state of Mississippi, but that should be one of our priorities. Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes, and that is 2,000 signatures. Minnesota, 2,000 signatures, again, 10 electoral votes. Hawaii, we have historically ignored Hawaii, written it off because the number of votes, signatures required to get on the ballot for an independent candidate is exorbitant. But during this election season, we found that party recognition is really not that tough at all. It's actually quite easy. So the Hawaii chapter would need to organize and work towards getting party recognition, which I believe should take less than 1,000 signatures, maybe around 800 or 900. Pennsylvania, next on the list, that is 20 electoral votes. This is an expensive state in terms of total cost, at a $10,000 estimate to get those signatures required. But it represents a good value because Pennsylvania will likely net us a lot of popular votes. It gives us 20 electoral votes, and it'll also likely be a swing state, meaning that any attention we get in Pennsylvania will be multiplied. Next on the list, Iowa with 6 electoral votes, Idaho with 4, Rhode Island with 4. Those are modest values. We don't get a lot of votes in those states, but it doesn't cost too much to get on the ballot over there. The next state would be Ohio. Again, like Pennsylvania, that's an expensive state. It will take a lot of signature gathering and will require a lot of money to get on the ballot over there. But Ballot Access in Ohio comes with 18 electoral votes. And I think we can expect a lot of the popular vote there as well. Then the value among our target states starts getting a bit lower. Vermont, it's fairly cheap with an expected cost of about 2,000 to get the signatures required. It only will net us 3 electoral votes. Virginia, Georgia, Nebraska will each have 13, 16, and 5. Those are getting a bit lower, but they're still good states to target. New York will be around $30,000 to get ballot access, but I think it's required to get that 270 threshold. And lastly, Alabama with 9 electoral votes. There are some, well, in order to achieve this, we should also have some contingency states. And I've prepared a plan, which I plan on mailing out, but I don't want to bore you with too much of the details. So I'll conclude my talk at this point, and I can send out the plan to for deeper analysis. I pass that on to, is it you, Albert?
Thank you, Desmond. And I thank you for giving us a very real goal that hopefully everyone who's on right now can begin to think about, what are the requirements in my state? What do I need to be able to do to not just get ballot access in time for 2024 election, but also to think about what does my state say about maintaining ballot access? Like Desmond said, there are cases where some states like Florida, if you've already have access or if you're already a registered party, then you get it automatically, and that is a low cost alternative. So start researching your rules. And thank you, Desmond, for that talk. Everyone, I'd like to move to the next strategy talk, which will be given by Patrick Harris, who is of the Tennessee Party and is vice chair of the American Solidarity Party. He'll be giving a broad overview of a plan that he has put together for things the party can seek to achieve over the near and long term.
But thank you, Albert, for the introduction. I am extremely pleased to see so many folks here tonight, many of whom I don't know at all. That's fantastic. What I want to do in just a few minutes is to go over some goals that we've been developing for the Solidarity Party as we go into the next election cycle. I just want to go over a few goals that we've put together kind of at the macro level for what the Solidarity Party is looking to do going into 2021, 2022, and beyond that to the next presidential election. So again, this is a very much a work in progress. This is not something that we've entirely filled out all the details, but these are some broad areas that we're looking to make some major strides forward in the next few years. The major area, well, I should start by saying kind of broadly what we're thinking about is expanding our to a much greater extent than we've had and the financial infrastructure to go along with that. I'll talk a little bit about the different kinds of election campaigns we'll be thinking about pursuing, the ways that we're going to kind of professionalize the organization of the party, and ways that we can have a bigger national presence when we get up to the next presidential election cycle. So in terms of candidates and campaigns, all of you will have known about the presidential campaign that we ran this year and perhaps, or this past year and perhaps also in 2016. In addition to that, we have run other campaigns for, gubernatorial campaigns, congressional campaigns, state and local office. Typically, we have done a small number of those. We've had some excellent, but we've run, maybe 2 or 3 races a year. And we've got some valuable experience from that, attainable goals for what it is we think that we're going to get out of these elections, different kinds of elections that we might involve ourselves in. So in most of our elections so far, we've, carry the banner for the ASP. We have, kind of multiple kinds of races that we can consider running. In the past, we've mostly had races where just anyone who wants to run has run, and we've taken it as a promotional tool for the party and didn't really expect to win. And that's fine. We expect to continue to have races like that. But if we're going to have those kinds of, just carry the flag races, we do need to have attainable goals for what we expect to get out of them in terms of generating growth for the party, member growth, fundraising, that winnable, that we can actually get some people into office to, start building experience, to have a pool of office holders. We do now, as of this year, have several members of the Solidarity Party who are in local office, although they're people who joined after they had already won those races. And so we'd like to expand that pool of candidates. So there are those kind of winnable local races. We'd like to pursue more of those. And then finally, we are considering also supporting either ASP members or ASP sympathizers or like-minded people in duopoly primary races. That is to say, in running for Democratic or Republican ballot lines in situations where we think that can promote our values, help us, build organizationally. So there's a kind of multi-pronged approach that we'd like to be able to take here. And we can talk maybe a little bit more about that in detail in the breakout. So in terms of what we're actually trying to do in terms of targets, this year, there aren't a lot of elections. There are statewide legislative races there. We've set a target to have 10 candidates this year, which is more than we've ever had, but I think it's achievable, especially with the level of interest that we're getting right now. And I'd like at least 2 of those to be at that kind of local winnable level to try to build, again, the pool of, but we also want to have financial infrastructure for each of those candidates. So campaign accounts or political action committees that can accept tax deductible donations. And one advantage of that is if we have PACs set up for all of our candidates, they can accept donations, and of course they can use those on elections. But if they don't use all the money that they receive, they can also donate them to other candidates or back to the ASP or to other affiliated organizations. And this is how the major parties are able to raise the money that they do to have the kind of electoral infrastructure that they have, because you have these kind of transfers going on between these different organizations. Now, there are regulatory concerns about this in terms of coordination that we'll have to follow. But we would like to encourage and perhaps assist a lot of our members to start setting up this financial infrastructure that's going to enable us to have a much bigger reach as we go into the future election cycles. So in addition to those local races, we'd also like to sort of have a trial run of running candidates who may be interested in running in a duopoly primary, especially if it is winnable or uncontested. You'd be surprised how many places across the country there is no Democratic candidate or no Republican candidate. Now, precisely because of that, those tend to be places where the general election would be very difficult to win. But just by winning the primary, you can ensure that you get your candidate on the ballot, and that becomes a means to get attention, potentially access to networks of donors and supporters and that sort of thing. So that's another way that we can try to get our message out there. So moving into 2022, we'd like to go a lot bigger. We're thinking at least 20 candidates nationwide, and in particular, we're looking for ASP ballot lines, which right now we have in Mississippi. We think we can get in Louisiana and Florida, and possibly also Hawaii. And in addition to just getting the party's name out there, one of the reasons that we want to run all of these congressional candidates is that it will help us obtain national party committee status from the FEC, if you'll see point 7. And the main significance of that is that would raise the cap on the donations that we're allowed to receive as a national organization, which would be helpful in the future. So that's part of our strategy. We're looking to run potentially more candidates in those winnable local races, more candidates potentially in duopoly primaries. And again, we want to have the financial infrastructure set up for these candidates, both to support their campaigns and then also to feed back into other campaigns, other ASP related events. And in addition to the candidate campaigns, we would also like to establish a network of issue-based or state-based political action committees. So for example, it could be a distributism PAC, it could be a you know, a geographic area pact. So like, you know, Texans for Solidarity or something like that. And, you know, these would each have their own leadership, but it would be a kind of, you know, network of sympathetic organizations who could give to, you know, candidates who support our values. And so that's the kind of financial structure, financial infrastructure that we think we need to really make a bigger difference going into 2024. Because that would, you know, potentially enable our presidential candidate to have a much bigger war chest than Brian Carroll, you know, had access to. And given how well he did with the limited resources that we had, that really could be a game changer. So that's what we're talking about in terms of those kinds of races in the next couple of years. Another thing that we are already starting to work on is our expanding our ballot access for the presidential campaign for 2024. We think we can be much more ambitious than we have been in the past. If you see your map here, the light yellow states are the ones that we got in this past cycle. We were on the ballot in 8 states. The medium orange color here are ones that we think we can expand to that are relatively easy to get. They still are going to take a lot of resources. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars that we would have to raise to, you know, get this kind of level. But we're potentially, we think it is achievable for us to be on the ballot in as many as 20 states next time, which would put us above, you know, the vast majority of third parties. We'd be up there, you know, pretty much ahead of everybody except for the Greens and Libertarians, you know, about the same level as the Constitution. Are you guys still hearing me okay, by the way?
Okay, you sure are, Patrick.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, great. So the orange states are the targets that are the medium orange states are the relatively low threshold target. The you're seeing on the map is a little bit higher, so those would be kind of reach states, so to speak. Those would be ones that would be pretty difficult to have. Excuse me. And so all told, I think there's about 24 or 25 states on that map. Is realistic for us, depending on the amount of funds that we're able to raise in the next presidential cycle. And so that's something that we're starting to work on now to give a lot more people a chance to vote for the ASP presidential candidate on the ballot than they were able to last time. And this is a big goal, but again, I think it's one that's attainable, and it's one that we're going to start working towards now. And so we're not going to be able to do any of this without greater fundraising capacity. So we're looking into you know, having people do that on a paid basis, bring donations, but by the end of 2 years from now, which that sounds like a lot, but that's basically like 200 people agreeing to give the $1 a month, which, you know, doesn't sound like that much when you put it that way. So if we are able to reach that level of fundraising, we're going to be in a place where we can do something very different as an organization than what we're able to do now. We have had a really big influx of funding, as you've probably heard from some of the other talks around the presidential cycle, and we're kind of hoping to turn that into something sustainable. Beyond that, we have a lot of kind of miscellaneous projects as an organization. I think others have mentioned we want to hire a part-time or maybe full-time executive director. We've also talked about, you know, getting more professional help with social media. Our blog has kind of lapsed a little bit. We'd like to get back to, you know, consistently getting content out on the blog. The web, because right now when people get on there, it doesn't necessarily, it's not a bad site, it's not a bad looking site, but it does lead you directly to the kind of the key points, which are join, donate. So it could potentially be a little bit better designed than it is. This coming year, we're also hoping to sponsor an internship program where we will try to get applications from college or graduate students who you know, will work on different tasks. We're still kind of setting up the program, but it might include, you know, producing policy papers, think that if we make it a paid program, that we could potentially get some really high quality applicants. And so that's one program that we're interested in. This past year, we attempted to have an in-person national convention, and then COVID happened. But we have not given up on that idea. We would like to get people together in the flesh. Potentially, we could do that on a little bit of a smaller scale with a leadership conference, perhaps by the end of next year. With the intent of actually carrying through the in-person convention in 2024. The pandemic happened 2024, but we don't want this party to be entirely online. We do want to get people back, meeting face to face, and so that's something that we're still expecting. Yeah, that's what I have for our strategic plan right now. As I've said, it's a work in progress, and so we're showing it to you guys to potentially get feedback and questions and comments, and I look forward to that. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Patrick. This might actually be a great time to segue to, I think there are a few things that Tony actually want to talk about. Tony, if you're ready, I think there were some things you wanted to share with the group.
Yeah, there definitely is. And if you all could, in terms of giving thanks, give a lot of thanks to Bryce, who was our production director last night, and to Tai Chi, who's our production director tonight. Tai Chi has a huge burden tonight because the way Zoom works, we were only able to pre-slot you into one set of breakout rooms. So he is literally manually putting every single one of us into the breakout sessions that we wanted to be in. And so Tai Chi super deserves a huge round of applause for the work that he's doing right now. But the thing that I want to talk about is, what is the American Solidarity Party? During his debate with Donald Trump, Joe Biden said, "I am the Democratic Party." We know from the last 4 years that in many ways the Republican Party, Donald Trump is the Republican Party. That's not the case with the American Solidarity Party. And this is something that's an immense strength for us. But also there's a lot of responsibility there. And a lot of responsibility, not just for the people that we have in leadership and not just for our candidates, but a lot of responsibility for all of you and all of us, right? And myself included. Patrick laid out in his presentation they just did a lot of really big ideas. A lot of ideas that, if you're anything like me, make you really excited, thinking about running 10 candidates this year, in a year when not many states are having elections, running a whole ton of candidates in 2022, growing our financial base and hiring a team that are able to help our candidates, help our party grow, increase our presence in the media, as well as all the other ideas that he shared, the ideas that were shared in our presentations yesterday. And I'm sure in all the breakouts that you just had, that there was a whole bunch more great ideas, but all of those ideas take people. We're not a party that has a personality at the center of it. We're a party that has principles at the center, and we are a party that has people at the center. And all of you that are here, whether you've been with the party since 2016 and even before as we were first founding, whether you are someone who's an officer in your state, or whether you're someone who joined the week of our last election because you heard about Brian Carroll, or there are folks who are here right now who've joined the party in the last week. No matter who you are, you play a role and you have a responsibility and an opportunity to help us make all of these great plans and strategies come into place. All of us have skills. And so there's a lot of skills that I want to encourage you to take a moment and think about what skills that you have that can help advance the party. The more folks that we have volunteering, the more folks we have sharing their skills, the more we're going to be able to do and the faster we're going to be able to achieve our goals. So if you have experience, for example, with coding, we have a team of folks who are working on coding programs that help us advance our party, whether it's through ranked choice voting methods or systems that allow us to reach more people faster. If you have an experience or an ability to do website design, we definitely can use you, right? Patrick talked about how we want to really take our website to the next level. If you spend a lot of time on Facebook, you may not think that that is a skill set and a gift, but we need good moderators that make sure our online presence is welcoming and helping share the truth about what our party stands for in a charitable way. All of us have skills and opportunities to advance the party. And so I'm actually going to encourage you right now in the chat to think for a moment and post and share what is one skill that you have that you can give to the party in this next year to help us advance these strategies and ideas that we've shared. So we're going to give a moment, give you a second to think. And then I really do encourage you to share in the chat for everyone, what's one skill that you can do to advance our party? As you all see those skills popping up in the chat, and again, keep them coming, does that make you feel excited? Because when I look at that, that makes me feel excited. It's really easy, especially if you're in a city where there's not a lot of members of our party. It's really easy to feel discouraged, to feel like you're alone, and to feel like the idea of getting people elected and changing the political culture in our country, that sounds really daunting. But I guess for me, when I see all those skills and all the folks that are here in this digital room, I feel really encouraged. And so I really want to encourage all of you to not just share in this chat, but after you've shared in the chat, write down a sticky note or a piece of paper, or send it, if you know people in your state party, send an email to someone in your state party and say, this is the skill that I want to give to the American Solidarity Party in 2021. Because if every single person in this room works this year and shares the skill that they just shared in the chat with the party, we will go places. We've set lofty goals, but I can guarantee you if we use all those skills to advance our party, we will far surpass our goals. And with the policies that we advocate for and the impact they can have, that leads to a better world and a better country. So thank you everyone that shared those skills. Again, please, it's one thing to think it, but it's another thing to enact it. So please reach out to members of the national committee. You can certainly reach out to me. It's tony.guidotti@solidarity-party.org and say like, hey, this is my skill. How do I get involved? I'll help you out. Reach out to your state chair and they'll be able to help get you plugged in. And if you visit the Connect Locally section or page of our website, that's where you can get contact information for either your state chair or Dane Garrett, who's our state development coordinator, who would love to talk to you. Two final things. One skill that I didn't see listed in that list in the chat is being able to talk to people that you know, whether it's coworkers, family members, friends. One-on-one conversations rooted in relationships about things that matter to you, like our statement of principles and like the hope that you have that our party could bring about. That might be the most important skill that we all have. And so it's important to never forget that the fact that you know people and that you can talk about our party is an immense gift and an immense skill. So don't forget that because you are the American Solidarity Party and you matter and you can make a huge difference.